How do you think history will remember Donald Trump?
I hope it will remember him as a one-term president who didn't plunge the country irretrievably into a downward spiral we can't recall from. We can get over one term. 2 terms I'm more troubled about. Decisions are made in a very scattershot fashion, especially in the potentially mortal field of national security policy. This is a danger for the republic.
Joining us now, a member of the House Judiciary and Budget Committees, chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. We're going to get to the William Barr, Geoffrey Berman story in just a moment. But first, John Bolton, his book. I have so many questions, but perhaps tell us what yours are. What do you think the most important questions out of the content of his book, the release of his book, and the timing of all of this information coming out?
Well, good morning. First of all, I'm troubled by the timing. John Bolton had his chance to step up and be a patriot. He could have participated in the House impeachment inquiry. He could have provided information during Donald Trump's Senate impeachment trial. Instead of being a patriot, he chose to be a profiteer and delay this information. And so that's highly problematic in terms of his motives. With respect to the information, we have every reason to believe that the things that John Bolton has talked about in this book as it relates to an out-of-control president who was committed to using his public office to interfere in the 2020 election is in complete alignment with what we proved in Article 1 of the impeachment of Donald Trump.
Mike Barnicle is with us. He's got the next question. Mike?
So, Congressman, we know over the weekend that the Attorney General of the United States of America, Bill Barr, finally succeeded in firing Geoffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Manhattan. We know that the morale within the Justice Department has already been quite shattered by various acts of the Attorney General. We have not yet seen the report that John Durham, who has been retained by the Attorney General to do an independent investigation of the whole Russia probe, Obama administration, FBI director, all the way, everything. What's your view on what is going on with the Attorney General of the United States? Is he that bad a manager that he can't control what he wants to do?
Well, within the executive branch, as you know, you have the White House counsel, and then you have the Attorney General. And the White House counsel's role is to be the president's attorney. The Attorney General's role is to be the people's attorney. William Barr appears to be confused or is intentionally doing the political bidding of Donald Trump on issue after issue after issue. He has done the political bidding of Donald Trump with respect to Michael Flynn in rolling back the guilty plea. He's done the political bidding of Donald Trump with respect to Paul Manafort in releasing him from prison, allegedly because of concerns related to the coronavirus, when you have everyday Americans languishing in prison after prison after prison throughout the country that have much higher rates of infection of COVID-19. Now it appears, with the firing of Geoffrey Berman, that he's doing the political bidding of Donald Trump in connection with Rudolph Giuliani, who's the president's bag man as it relates to the Ukraine scandal. And so we need to get to the bottom of what has been occurring under the tenure of William Barr, because it stinks, it's rotten, and it's toxic.
All right, Eddie, take the next question.
Representative Jeffries, it's good to see you. I hope you're safe and healthy and your family's safe and healthy. But I have a quick question. We're dealing with the effects of continued police violence. We've seen 30-plus days of consistent protests. Give me a sense of the path forward for police reform, quote unquote, or transformation. How are we moving forward? How is the House bill going to be reconciled with what's going on in the Senate? Could you give us a sense of what are the next steps?
Yeah, Eddie, great to see you as always. We need to move forward with the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act in both the House and the Senate. We're going to pass this bill on Thursday because it is the strongest possible bill, the most transformative and the most comprehensive. It will establish a national standard for the use of force anchored in the principle of de-escalation tactics in the first instance and the use of deadly force only as a matter of last resort. It will criminalize the chokehold pursuant to our nation's federal civil rights statutes. It will end qualified immunity, which serves as a block for the ability of everyday Americans who've been victimized by police brutality to use our nation's civil rights laws, not just the right to have a lawsuit, but also a remedy. It will also eliminate no-knock warrants. These are all things in drug cases. These are all things that the Senate bill doesn't do. The Senate bill pretends to try to incentivize different departments throughout the country to do the right thing. But this is a national problem of police violence that we have. It requires a national solution. And the only way to bring that about is with a strong piece of federal legislation through the House and the Senate.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We'll be following all of this, of course.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.